Hey guys, so in the previous video we went over conditionals and if statements and all of that. So today we're going to be kind of transitioning into a new topic of loops. Alright, so let's say I have a boss and my boss tells me, listen, I need you to print out hi 50 times. So I'm like, okay, yeah, 50 times, and I type it all out and then I gotta copy paste it 50 times. At this point, I don't even know how many times I've copy-pasted, right? This is a super repetitive task. Another repetitive task could be adding up numbers, right? You want to add up the numbers from 1 to 10, all of the numbers, right? Then you wouldn't do, okay, plus 1, plus 2, plus 3. Or let's say you want to add up all the numbers from 1 to a million, right? Then that can be a really repetitive task that doing in individual statements like this would be super impractical and inefficient. That's where loops come in, okay? They're basically a really convenient, clean, and efficient way of performing repetitive tasks. So there's a few different kinds of loops in Java, all right? The first one we're going to talk about are for loops. So here's what the syntax looks like, all right? We're going to start with for, and then inside the parentheses there's three little parts, okay? The first part is declaring and assigning an initial value to your counter variable, right? This is the variable that keeps track of how many times you've performed the code inside the loop and when you want to stop. And typically, it's always I. It's just always I. It's not like X or Y. I mean, it can be J, it can be K, whatever. But for some reason, whenever you're writing like your first for loop, it's always I. And like, I always use I. And in programming, our first number is not 1, but we actually go from 0. That's another thing. Okay, so that was the first little part of assigning and then declaring and then assigning your counter variable. Now you have to put the condition for when it has to stop, right? When is this loop going to stop? Well, let's say I want to execute it 10 times. Then as long as it's less than 10, I want it to be executing. So basically this condition is like, okay, like until when should we be executing this loop, right? So as long as this condition holds true, you can keep doing the code that's inside the braces. And the last part is each time the loop is being executed, how much are you incrementing your variable by? So this is where the I++ that we talked about a couple videos ago comes in. Right, so basically what's happening is we're creating our little counter variable, we're starting it at 0, and as long as it's less than 10, it's going to be incrementing by 1 each time, and it's going to execute whatever code is inside the braces. Right, so here maybe we're going to print out hi. Right, in that case, when we run it, it prints it out 10 times. Right? So this is a really convenient and fast way of doing repetitive tasks, right? Let's say I want to add up all the numbers from 1 to 10, right? So I'm going to declare some variable here. It's going to be 0. Okay, and then each time I'm going to increment it by I, right? Because it starts at 0. In this case, maybe we want to add up from the numbers 1 to 10, so we would do like that instead. And it'll add it, and then maybe we just want to keep track of how much our number is going up by each time, so we'll just print out the sum. Awesome, so here you'll see that it adds up all the numbers, 1, then plus 2, and then plus 3, plus 4. Right, so this is a really, really easy way of just doing something that's really repetitive. Awesome, so the second way is with a while loop. And this is basically while a condition is true, do whatever's inside. Okay, so it'll be like while, and inside the parentheses goes your condition, much like the if statement. So let's say for this, we're going to declare a variable, and say 0. This is my counter variable. And then while x is greater than 10, we want to print out, why don't we just print out x? Okay, and the important thing here is you have to increment the variable. Okay, and this should be less than, I'm sorry. We have to increment the variable, okay? Like if I were to forget, I just wrote this, right, then we would actually get stuck in an infinite loop. It just wouldn't stop, and it would eventually crash, which we don't want that. Like, look at all those zeros being printed out. right? So that's why don't forget that in your while loop you always want to increment, right? Or if you have some condition, that condition has to change. That condition can't be true the entire time. And similarly, it can't be false. Like if I put greater than, it wouldn't even enter. It would just do this first part, and then because 0 is never greater than 10, it wouldn't even enter the loop, right? So these are just little things you have to be careful of. And right now, the while loop kind of looks like a deconstructed for loop, right? But there's some times when you want to use a while loop over a for loop. Like oftentimes all the games that some of you guys might be playing, right? They're encompassed in a while loop. That, okay, while my person, whoever's playing the game, the user, hasn't died, or like while their character is still alive or they're still playing, whatever, then do all the code, right? So that's an example where instead of a for loop where there's a fixed amount of times you want to be doing some task, it's more like while some condition is true, that's where you would use a while loop. Awesome, so these are two basic kinds of loops in Java. I'll see you guys in the next video.